Hi everyone. Welcome back to my channel. I have the privilege to be here today with the love of my life, Mr. Happy Creator. And yeah, we've just been feeling inspired to share more about my story because I have such an incredible story. And Happy has such a beautiful way of storytelling and of asking the questions that really support the richness and the minute, refined details to come about. So we were exploring him joining me in a kind of interview-like style, but we just want to keep it casual, conversationalist. You might hear some noises in the background because there's a bunch of construction happening in our neighborhood. And yeah, I'm not going to be editing this. I don't edit any of my videos, so we're just going to let it flow however it happens, and trust in the divine plan that exactly everything that is shared is exactly what is meant to be shared. So with that, I am going to pass the leadership over to Happy, and we'll just see how this goes.
Okay. Taria Wild Rose, I would like to know, I would like to hear about you. Because there are a lot of teachers, leaders, communicators in the space of like personal growth, personal development, spiritual teachings. And a lot of them are wonderful and very articulate. And have good knowledge to pass on. But my bias, my opinion, is that you are rare or perhaps unique in the space. Well, you're definitely unique because there's only one of you. But you could say that for everyone. You're there. You have a rare experience, which is that you have lived a, a dynamic range on the spectrum of pain and pleasure, gain and loss. And so, what you have to share and what you have to teach is not only theoretical, but it's lived and living, and in a way that just most people's experience is not. And that's because you have been into depths that, while many people experience these depths, most of them do not go on to be a beacon of light like you are. So, yep, there are other people in this space who are beacons of light, and there are other people in the world who have experienced homelessness, human trafficking, and yeah, child sexual abuse.
Mm-hmm.
But there's something special about a person who has been in the depths of the darkness and is now a transmission of the light. I think it's Carl Jung who says, the tree whose branches would reach to heaven must have roots that reach to hell. So you're the embodiment of this principle. So I I know you have lots of wisdom to share, and you share it here on your channel. But I'd love for you to share a bit about where that wisdom comes from. So we don't have to go all the way back into the darkness to start. But just to know that there is a deep, dark beginning, and that somehow from that wisdom emerged. So where did the wisdom come from? Can you do you understand what I'm trying to ask here? Like, what's the beginning of the wisdom?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel that the wisdom came from my decision, really, my choice to transform, to face the pain that I went to, and it's been a long and ongoing process to face the pain that I went through, to face the ugliness, to do my best to digest the ugliness and my perceptions of ugliness, and transform it into something meaningful, something beautiful, something that gives me purpose, and like you're sharing, wisdom to share. That from the depth of that pain and trauma was where the wisdom was born.
It was born there, but it's only started to come to light when you decided to face it. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
So there was a moment where you chose to face it. Mm-hmm. But previous to that, the seed of this wisdom was not yet sprouted, maybe. So because you had not consciously made the decision to turn to face it yet.
Yes.
So what was the prompt, or what was the thing that made you say, it's time to face my pain?
Mm-hmm. So throughout my life, we're looking back and forth because it's just the setup. Throughout my life, I had several opportunities for a dark night, to transform a dark night of the soul, meaning face it. And essentially what this looked like was I would lose everything, or my perception of everything, all at once. So at times it would be inclusive of the house that I was living in, the relationship that I was in, the job that I was doing seemed to be the pattern. And this happened twice in my 30s. But I didn't take it super seriously. The pain wasn't great enough for me to decide to face it. And I was still in a place of like, well, it's his fault, it's her fault, and it's my boss's fault, and it's my childhood's fault. And and it wasn't until 2019 when I experienced such a heartbreak of a relationship ending, which also included a miscarriage. And at the time of that heartbreak, I was pregnant when he left. So the terror really, and the pain was just so loud that I had to really be honest with myself that I was a continual character in the story where I would point my finger out to blame other people. That here I find myself again in the same similar dynamics, different faces, and the common denominator was me. And the pain was just so painful that it felt like I was going to die. And ultimately, yeah, there was a part of me that was dying to be reborn. But it was literally a choice point, because it really felt like die or do something different. And it doesn't make logical sense, but our feeling realm doesn't, because it's like I wasn't actually dying, but it felt like I was. And it was then that I decided that I was just going to have to face and feel that pain and ride it all the way through as best I could.
Okay, So that was 2019.
Yeah.
You had started doing this personal development work earlier than that.
Mm-hmm.
So there was something beginning there, but it sounds to me like in 2019 you're as I know, you're in this intense relationship. There's a pregnancy, a miscarriage, a second pregnancy, and then a rupture, a permanent rupture, and you are left alone. And so that was a big motivator, or it was kind of in a way like a rock bottom, where it's like, okay, enough. This There's a pattern here. Something keeps repeating, and the common denominator is me. It's not doesn't make sense to blame, my partner, my mother, my childhood, society, or anything else anymore. And so that was a turning point. And but something, would you say 2016 or even earlier than that, where there was another kind of beginning?
Yeah, so 2016, 2015 was another dark night of the soul, which did elicit an action for me of, because job was also contained in that time, and so I was thinking about, well, what am I going to do? I'd like to grow my skills and my training, and so 2015 is when I decided to join ClearMind, which was now a personal development program for counselors, which really began this process. Well, no, I guess not. I would have to say in 2010, when I became a volunteer with a women's organization, and part of being able to be a volunteer, you went through this extensive training about oppression and inequalities and societal dynamics and colonization and racism. And believe it or not, this was one of the very first times that I could situate myself in the context of greater dynamics at play, greater societal dynamics, greater factors at play. And so it was really enlightening, for lack of a better word maybe, that the world that I was existing in seemed like it got bigger. And I, one of the first times, didn't feel so alone in it. And yeah, so I do need to acknowledge, just these opportunities in life when our perception can expand and we can have a new experience of ourselves. Yeah, I'm hearing some
loud banging,
some other banging. Anyway, we'll continue on. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we're working in a construction zone here. It is what it is. So what I'm hearing you say, though, about getting started with the women's organization is that you went from living a life of where there's like chaos and cruelty and a lot of pain and abandonment and betrayal.
Yep.
But there was no supportive context or empowering context or no narrative that would have you make sense of that or navigate it in an intelligible way. And getting this training gave you a narrative. It was an early example of like you have a narrative that will help you, and then that narrative will evolve as you do. But that was the beginning. That situated you in a context with a narrative that made you feel less alone, and started to give you some access to your own empowerment.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, so then the next kind of evolution of that, in terms of expanding my awareness and being able to situate myself in the greater picture, was ClearMind, where the first year was like exploring family system dynamics. So being able to situate myself in the context of intergenerational patterns that were passed down through the generations. That was hugely eye-opening and enlightening. Yeah.
Okay, and so then, you end up on this path, and I don't think we'll focus that much on this part of it today.
Yeah.
But you end up on this path where there's just more and more education, and you're quite educated as for intervention in domestic abuse, as a counselor at Clear Mind, as a yoga instructor, as a Kundalini dance teacher, as an internal pelvic health expert, and more.
Yeah.
Right? You've learned a lot. Breath work, psychedelic assisted therapy. You have a lot of training.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd like for today to be focusing on how your life is an embodiment of alchemy. You're a supreme alchemist, and I think that's what, like I said, there's a lot of teachers who are pointing to that and even have gone through a transformation in their own way. But we're here to have your story, which is very special. So actually, maybe we should just try and go back to the beginning and start to do this chronologically, and we'll get how far we get today, and then next week we'll pick it up wherever we leave off today.
Okay.
Hopefully there'll be less banging. Man, that is loud. I hope it's not so loud on the microphone.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, there's construction across the street, but it sounds like somebody is taking a sledgehammer to the walls of this building right now. Am I right? This is crazy.
It does.
Okay. Shout out to Logan for the gift of this cool Guns N' Roses Appetite for Destruction t-shirt, which I love.
Logan's my son.
And shout out to my beloved for this awesome mala. wearing gifts. Wearing gifts. May we all wear our gifts. Okay, so what do you know about your birth, or even your gestation, or what do you suspect is the case about your earliest beginnings?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's my understanding. I did reunite with my birth mother in 2010, and I've heard multiple versions of the story, and that's okay. But obviously, for anyone in this position, it has left me feeling very confused at times, especially around identity. So the version, according to my mother and other family members, my aunt, who is the biological sister of my birth mother, my birth mother was in a relationship at the time with a man who was involved in criminal activity. They both were. And there was just a lot of chaos and a lot of instability, and the dynamics in their relationship wasn't always the best, bordering abusive. However, my birth mother and other people have reported just how much she loved this man, who is apparently the father of my brother, but not my father. So my gestation contains, for lack of a better word, a lot of just chaos and instability. And
so when your mom was pregnant with you, she was already in love with your brother's father?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. And he was a criminal. So whatever's going on in the instability of their lives, your experience in the womb included some amount of stress on your mom's nervous system.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Which stands to reason because eventually you're removed from her care at a
Yes.
young age. So
Yep.
that doesn't just start overnight.
No.
Okay, so then you're born, and a year later your brother's born. What do you know about your infancy? And again, I know you're kind of piecing it together from what your birth mother said, and she's not the most reliable narrator, and what her sister said, and maybe some other your adoptive parents said, and then what your government papers said. It's a bit sketchy, but we'll just go with the information you have. And
yeah. So what happened after I was born? Is that what you mean?
Yeah. Well, what do you know about your infancy?
The gist of what I know about my infancy, and this information is probably more from my adoptive mother, when she was available, as an adult, to tell me about my birth experience or my early childhood experience. And that was mostly around, again, the criminal activity that her and my brother's father was involved in. And then later, and I don't know the exact time frame on this, but her sister, so my aunt, her biological sister, my aunt, saying that there that noise.
That was extra loud banging.
That there was a lot of partying and drug use going on, and according to her account, suspicion of my brother and I being sexually abused. I feel like this is a bit, I don't know the exact timeline on that one, because according to my aunt, part of this increased drug usage by my birth mother was because she was grieving the breakup with my brother's father. That's her version, and in her version, she is the one who called Children's Aid. It's not exactly known, but we'll see how it plays out. So she was with my mother at one point, and she overheard a conversation where it's like, let's sell the children again to get some drugs. But the weird thing was, according to my aunt, that she had been suspecting this for a long time, but she didn't feel like she had the evidence. And then when she heard that, she said she left my mom's place and went to a payphone and called child services, and that's when we were taken away. And to this day, that is a family secret, where my birth mother doesn't actually know that it was her sister who called Children's Aid.
Okay, so the story is
that's
that
coming out.
well, yeah, we're telling your story here, so
Yeah, but you just never know where it's gonna go.
No. But, okay. So, I mean, also, this is pretty grave and heavy stuff. But sometimes we'll have a lighthearted tone talking about it.
Yeah.
Which is, I think there's two reasons for that. So just so that when we're kind of here smiling and feeling a bit lighthearted, talking about dark, heavy stuff that happened to you personally, and childhood trauma and sexual abuse, is that, for one, it's very much processed for you. I know, like, it still affects you in some ways, but mostly you're in charge of you in a way that it's healed, or it's resolved enough that
I can talk about it.
You can talk about it without that weight or the pain of it like jabbing you. And that also that there is, we both will use humor as a way of engaging with some dark and tragic material sometimes, because I think, like, making that dark, heavy cruelty, showing that it is ridiculous.
Yep.
Even though it's painful and horrible, it's also ridiculous, actually, that a child should be abused in that way. And so there's something about bringing that ridiculousness to life and laughing about it that is also transformative. This is the nature of dark humor, gallows humor. I know some people have a problem with it, but it's a coping and a survival strategy, and it's even just a way of reckoning with the process. There's times where it would be inappropriate to laugh, but it's your story, and
Yeah.
you know, and it's sometimes it's just like so overwhelming that what are you going to do?
Yes. Ooh. Yes, and I just do my best to meet the layers, right? Like some days, as you know, because we've been together for 3 years now, you meet it and the pain is there and I'm in tears. And then other days it's like you feel like you're more in this expanded perspective, and it's like you're seeing through the eyes of God, and it just seems like a cosmic joke.
Right,
and it's like
yeah.
and you were mentioning alchemy, and so there's many ways that we can alchemize, and I do my best to allow it to emerge as it's emerging. You know, if I'm really in it and that part of me is present, and she just needs to bawl her eyes out, or even like have a temper tantrum or whatever it is, you know, and then other times I'm fully resourced and my higher self is more available to me and I'm feeling really resourced, and it's like I can't even believe some of the things that are coming out of my mouth because it's so atrocious.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and yeah, I mean, my story and where I'm at on the journey is it's my story, you know, and it's my journey and it's my process, and it's definitely not to take away from the heaviness of the impacts of sexual abuse, of child sex trafficking, you know, and to get to a place where I can speak about it. Yeah, there's a lot of alchemy that has happened, and yes, one of those ways is like, wow, God has a sense of humor. That's me. That's where I'm at, and by no means am I. Everybody gets to do them, and wherever you're at on the journey is perfect.
And it also, I think, points to like how paradoxical our human experience is, right? Where it's like things are really important to us and really critical and really crucial about our lives, and we take them seriously. But we're also aware of our tininess in the universe, you know, that like our lives appear and disappear in the blink of an eye, cosmically speaking. And so somehow like we learn to hold these two and even more perspectives, right? So something is at once tragic and comically ridiculous, you know.
Yes.
And so there's a part of us that wants it to be just one way. We want to be able just to laugh and be lighthearted and bypass the pain and the tragedy of things. Sometimes some people are that way. You see a lot in spiritual communities. But then other people are like fixated on the cruelty and the injustice of it, and they like would only participate in how heavy and important these momentary lives are. And I think like along the path, the opportunity is to grow your consciousness such as that you're able to hold both or both those ends of the spectrum, but also like an entirety of realities about things. No thing is just one way. You can see it from multiple perspectives, and its meaning changes over time.
Yes.
So like the abuse you experienced as a teenager had a certain meaning at that time, and then a certain meaning in your 20s, and now it means something else altogether.
Yes.
So
yeah, absolutely.
So it's part of the growth.
Absolutely, and you bring up a important distinction that I love speaking to too, is holding. Can you hold it all? Can you hold it all, and can you just meet it as it's arising in that moment in the emergent fields? Like the way it looked like yesterday, or maybe the morning of yesterday compared to the evening of yesterday, can be two different emergent realities that, as long as I'm just willing to meet and face, and yes, exactly what you're saying too, like holding the paradox, which is life, and what I also like to say is resting in the sweet spot as best we can, even though we're gonna go here sometimes. I'll just own me. I go here sometimes, I go way over here sometimes, and other times I'm beautifully able to rest in the middle of it all and find the humor in it.
Okay, so I mean, you mentioned child sex trafficking. That's got to be the deepest, darkest, worst like aspect of human life, practically, that anyone can think of. And you're talking about how, according to your biological aunt, your biological mother was maybe trafficking you and your brother, who were around or under the ages of 2 and 1.
Under the ages of 2, yeah.
You're the older child, so you're maybe around 2, and your brother's about a year younger. And it's at that point that you're apprehended.
Yes.
By the state.
Yes. Yeah. So, yes, the version according to my aunt, my birth mother's sister, she was the one who called child welfare services. Maybe child welfare services was called more than once. Because then, according to my adoptive mother, my birth mother.
That's okay. That's her pseudonym anyway.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. My birth mother and my brother's father were arrested for some criminal activity, and they went to jail. Right. So the time frame on was there more than one child welfare intervention? By the sounds of it, probably. But according to my adoptive mother, who worked at the Elizabeth Fry Society back then, which is how she intersected with my birth mother, my birth mother was in jail. My birth mother gets out of jail, but still on conditions in a halfway house, and meets my adoptive mother, who was a worker at the Elizabeth Fry Society. Because as part of your ongoing rehabilitation from the criminal system, especially as a woman, you have to agree, or you're mandated to have these services, which includes being involved with the Elizabeth Fry Society in Toronto, as part of the conditions for your earlier release or probation or whatever it is. So that's how they intersected.
So already there's a couple different versions.
Yep.
Your aunt calls Child Protective Services in one version. Your parents are arrested for something unrelated to child abuse in another version.
Yep.
Somewhere the truth is both of those, probably. I'm sure there are multiple calls. Usually it takes more than one call to child services to apprehend the children. And anyway, it's the details aren't super important, but what is important that is that there is very early trauma.
Yes.
And pre-verbal trauma, probably, and definitely that in those first 2 years you experience some inordinate amount of stress, possibly from abuse, but certainly from like the chaos of like dysfunctional parents to some extent, where your birth mother ends up in jail.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then you go into care. You don't really have memories yet of this time,
Mm-hmm.
but you know from the stories that you've been told by those who were there, your adopted mom and etc., that your adopted mom and your birth mother had a professional relationship.
Yes.
Or in the sense that your birth mother was a client of your adopted mother,
Mm-hmm.
which already points to some more sketchy
Mm-hmm.
stuff about your journey. Do you want to take it from there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so then the story goes that my brother and I were in the foster care system when they meet. And according to my birth mother, we weren't being treated well. She was quite angered at visiting with us and seeing how poorly we were being treated. And she wanted us out of the foster care system. My adopted mother, I keep having to make sure I'm not mentioning names. My adopted mother comes up with an agreement, or they come up with agreement of, okay, how about I take the kids, so me and my brother, for an amount of time while you get your shit together, essentially. And then once you get your shit together, I'll return them to you. Something like that. Obviously, again, it's out of, as somebody who's worked in support services, you don't go making agreements about taking somebody's kids while they figure their stuff out, You just don't do that. So ethical boundaries are crossed.
Also, this is the early 80s.
This is the early
when
80s,
it's a little bit more Wild West and like there's less oversight and less regulation. So if someone wanted to kind of make a deal outside of the system, that probably would have been easier 40-something years ago than it would be now.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so then the nature of my adopted mother and birth mother's relationship, it seemed to be quite contentious from what I've heard from multiple sources. While it began in this kind of amicable agreement of, I'll take care of your kids, make sure they're treated well, and you just get your stuff together and I'll give them back to you, it became quite contentious. And I can imagine that some of the underlying intentions started to be felt. It's hard to know. I mean, we don't ever really know the story unless we were there. But it's hard to know. But there's an imagining that because this is the way the evidence is the way that it unfolded is great. I'm sorry, my adoptive mother ended up filing to adopt us. And apparently this happened behind my birth mother's back.
Yeah, which I don't even think that's possible now. Like,
yeah.
You can't just have your kids adopted out from under you, but maybe it was back then.
Yeah. Well, I don't think it's about adopting from under, but the original agreement somehow was betrayed or broken to now my adopted mother's going to the court system and beginning the proceedings to file for adoption. Right? You can still make a case for why.
Okay, who really knows about it? It's not my area of expertise, like how kids get adopted without their biological parents' consent or knowledge.
Well, yeah, so totally. You're on it because my birth mother had to give her consent for the period of time that my adopted mother was taking care of us.
Okay.
Right? So there was consent in that. That would have been the original agreement.
But then somehow your adopted mom was able to
Then
actually legally adopt you and your brother and become your mother.
Yes.
But somehow or other it ends up where your biological mom and your adoptive mom are at odds.
Yes.
Over whatever happened that had you end up in the custody of your adopted mom.
Yes, and when I have spoken with either of them about the other, it's always a big source of contention, and you can hear the resentment. I might even say hatred of each other.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
As an adult.
Okay, so then even like the transfer of custody of you and your brother is troubled. So so far in life, there's no smooth sailing.
Yeah.
Okay, so but then you're adopted into a new home, which hopefully that would be your deliverance from this life of chaos, dysfunction, and rough going.
Yeah. Yes. Well, and there's more to the adoption story, because what I've been told by other family members of the adoptive family, even my adoptive father, was that it was my brother was the one that my adoptive mother wanted to adopt. And I don't know why that is, but as other sources have told me, in the adoptive family, including my adoptive father, the court had told her, these kids have been through enough, and if you're going to adopt one, then you must adopt the other. So there's already this thread of, I'm not wanted.
Not wanted, and ultimately not welcome.
Not welcome, yeah.
So that's down the line.
Yeah, that continued to play out.
Okay, so yeah, interesting that all of these dynamics are in play, because they're all really setting the stage for, I mean, it gets worse.
Sex trafficking? Yeah.
It gets worse.
Yeah.
Okay, so what was life like for you in this adoptive home where your adopted mom only takes you begrudgingly so that she can have a son?
Well, when you put it that way, so she can have a son, yeah. Well, my experience was that I wasn't as valued as my brother. My brother was, in my experience, really cherished. He got away with a lot of things, and I would get blamed for the things that he got away with. I was a year older, so I'm the oldest. By anyone out there who's an oldest and got blamed for everything, it's like, but I'm just a year older, I took the brunt of the abuse in the house. What I know now in terms of family system dynamics, I took the brunt of the anxiety and the pain that wasn't being felt in the system. I was often told just how stupid I was, and how ugly I was, not necessarily in those words, but from my childlike perception, that's how I perceived it. And I think the most painful thing about that time was that my adoptive mother would pull my brother into this kind of making fun of me dynamic. So it just felt really painful and lonely.
Yeah, and so that is actually typical in an abusive home. I've known some survivors of family abuse, of child abuse, and in two cases, people who I was quite close with, who were the eldest child of two in an abusive home, and the dynamic plays out exactly the same. That eldest child of abuse is the scapegoat for the family. Everything that's going wrong in the family is because of the oldest child. The younger one is recruited to play the role to join in the abuse, the mockery in some kind of way. And then, you know, in adult life, and this is consistent across these examples, but this is also what is known about these dynamics,
Yep.
is that the younger child will, you know, hear the older child's experience and say, oh, it wasn't that bad.
Yes. Yeah, that has happened.
So which is then that's another complication for processing the experience, because that eldest child doesn't have any solidarity from the people who were actually there to witness the experience. So then, like, not only processing your experience, but like the gaslighting and the sort of betrayal, the ongoing betrayal, even if it's unconscious from the younger sibling, could be quite innocent in it actually, but like it's still nevertheless perpetuating this disempowering kind of block.
Yes.
From like, there's no, you know, it can be a journey then for that eldest child to like have their experience validated and even feel like, I know this has happened, but why, you know, I'm going crazy because, you know, no one in my family will admit it.
Yeah, absolutely. And because there was other witnesses besides my brother, like extended family members, my adopted mother's brother, my auntie, you know, who to this day have spoken up in various ways over the years and just naming it, like you treat Tria like she's the devil and you treat my brother like he's an angel, you know. And just so great for adults, you know, as I would have loved for that to have happened more, but so great for me to witness that as a child really being named by adults in the space. So also I like many girls in the 80s and perhaps beyond, I took on the role of playing the good girl, or doing my best to play the good girl. You know, I excelled at sports. I was a straight A student up until the time that I left my adoptive home. I spent most of my time studying and learning, and this was really instilled in me in aggressive ways at times as well. I was already into social justice issues. I was writing letters to the Prime Minister and getting Prime Minister Brian Mulroney to write me a letter back. I would do a coloring contest and I would win. Essentially, whatever I put my mind or heart into, I excelled at back then. And yet, the abuse that I experienced at home continued and even escalated. And beyond that, I also didn't have any sanctuary at school because I was one of the only, there's me and one other black guy. I was the only colored person in the school that I went to in small town Ontario. And my name conveniently created Tria diarrhea. So I was called Tria diarrhea by the other students. Now I can like, wow, that's pretty creative, you know, considering my skin color and and it was very painful because not only did I have this experience of isolation and aloneness at home, but there was sanctuary at school in some regards, but it was also extremely lonely. Like I didn't have many places to go to experience attention, love, and connection. I did have the times that I spent with my aunt. I'm not mentioning any names, so I'd like to mention her name, but we're keeping names out just to be fair across the board. The times that I did spend with my aunt and my cousins on my adoptive mother's side was some of the most memorable and loving. My aunt was super loving. She knows who she is, and was just such an anchor of grace and thank God, right? Thank God for, because as we know, our brain is so hardwired for protection and survival that even to turn towards, well, who was showing up for me and there for me, and it just becomes ever more important. And I know I talk about this with clients too, to notice, not just notice the people who were there, but to rest there longer. You know, to be able to remember that it wasn't all horrible.
Okay, so there's two things also just to highlight. So at home there was physical violence. When we're saying abuse, you were ridiculed, whatever, but just to name it clearly, your adopted mother would beat on you.
Yes. Yep.
And exclude you from family dinners, whatever, isolate you socially, keep you from friends,
Yes.
All that kind of thing.
Yes, my brother could like have social time. It's just so interesting how like this protection of the girl, or the belief that she's more vulnerable, or I don't know, there's so much interwoven into that. But what he could do, I couldn't do.
Right. So you're also like, you can see that it's not fair that that your brother gets preferential treatment. So like all of this is playing at the psychology of the child.
Yes.
That things aren't fair. You're being singled out for cruelty, and also the physical violence is a communication of itself. That says, you know, you're not of value.
Yes.
Whatever the parent intends, there are really great parents who even still would advocate like giving their child a smack on the butt or whatever, but that physical communication at the level of the nervous system is like, says you're not of value. That's what I think anyway.
Yes.
And so you had to deal with a whole bunch of that ridicule, exclusion, and physical violence, all of which was degrading. And then at school, you did not have friends. You were not accepted. You didn't belong. You know, probably for various reasons, but certainly you looked different. So that was, you were of a different race, which you know, that is certainly something that can affect kids. And so at school, you're lonely. At home, you're lonely. There's no belonging. There's no welcoming. There's not many places where you are getting the message that a child needs, which is that you are precious, you are of value, you have good ideas, and your future is bright. That is just fundamentally not happening, except when you get to visit your aunt and your cousins, which thank God for them. I just need to do a time check. Oh, okay. So then let's wrap this episode up.
Okay.
So this is sort of the early elementary years, maybe the primary years, grade 3, grade 4, grade 5, if there's a change. But that's where we'll pick it up next week. Okay. And we'll continue to tell your incredible story, which is ultimately it's a story that is a beacon of light. You and your story are actually a beacon of light, because all this horrible nonsense gets transformed into the beautiful offering you make of your life now. Anything you want to say in closing to your audience?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you. As Happy was saying, this is just the first part of a continuation of a conversation that is just so important to have, you know. So I will leave it there as well, and I hope that you continue to join us. If you have any questions, I'll drop my email below in the summary, and look forward to spending some time with you next time.
And people can also type their questions into the comment section, yeah?
Sure. I mean,
If you want.
You do you.
I think it's like
you.
it's like good for like the visibility of the video if people comment.
Okay.
Comment and like and do all that. Subscribe. The more engagement, the better. And to the extent that this conversation will help like people who are more lost in the confusion of their trauma, to know that, I mean, they're going to hear things that they can relate to, and to know that this alchemy is possible, that the dark material can become gold.
Yes, and beautiful. It can become beautiful. And I just want to thank you for holding the space. Oh,
it's an honor. It's a pleasure. You're my favorite person. You're the most impressive person I've ever met. And I love your story, and I'm psyched to see it roll out in these chapters over the weeks. And my hope is that other people get something from it too. And even people that already know you and have known you for a long time are going to get to hear more of the fullness of what it takes to make a career of wild rose.
All right, on that note, see you next time.